You know, it's funny how some ideas can become so embedded in our world, so foundational, that we just forget they're even there. We don't remember where they came from. But even when they're forgotten, they're still working in the background, quietly shaping our conflicts, our politics, and even how we see ourselves.
So, here's how we're going to unpack this. We'll start with America's current identity crisis, then we're going to dig way back to uncover a hidden foundation laid down in 1493. From there, we'll see how the whole structure was built on top of it, how that doctrine is still alive today, and finally, how this has created a massive crisis in perception.
All right, let's start with something that probably feels really familiar. This huge, ongoing battle over what the American story even is. It feels like we're fighting over our national identity, but as we're about to see, that fight is really just a symptom of something much, much deeper.
I mean, seriously, why is this happening? It seems like everywhere you look, from school boards to the halls of Congress, we are at war over our own history. How did the past become such a volatile battleground in our present?
A lot of the time, the fight gets boiled down to these two dates, these two competing origin stories, right? Is the real America born in 1776, a story all about liberty and incredible ideals? Or does the story actually start in 1619 with the first enslaved Africans, meaning the country is rooted in oppression from day one? These are two completely different ways of understanding who we are.
Now, these debates are obviously super intense, but according to the work of Robert P. Jones, they might be missing the most important part. What if both of these dates, 1776 and 1619, are just different floors in a building, and the real story, the thing that shapes everything, is actually in the foundation that was laid centuries before either of them?
And that brings us to the foundation itself. To really get it, we have to go back way further than the American Revolution, further than the beginnings of slavery in Virginia. We have to go back to an idea that provided the moral and legal blueprint for everything that was about to happen, an idea that's been almost totally erased from our collective memory.
This is it, the Doctrine of Discovery. And look, this is not some dusty, obscure historical footnote. This was a series of world-altering decrees from the Pope that basically gave European Christian explorers a divine green light. It said they could go out, discover, and claim any lands that weren't already inhabited by Christians. In one move, it created a global hierarchy, Christian Europeans at the top, and pretty much everyone else below.
And this quote from Jones really nails why it's so important. He calls it a Rosetta Stone. Think about that. It's the key that lets us decipher the hidden logic, the unspoken assumptions about land, about race, and about God that were baked into the whole colonial project from the very, very beginning. So when you reframe the timeline like this, everything starts to look different. When you put 1493 at the start, you see that before 1619, before 1776, a moral and legal framework was already in place. The worldview that justified taking land and dehumanizing entire populations was set in stone before the United States was even a dream.
Okay, so this wasn't just some abstract theological idea. This doctrine became the invisible architecture, the foundational logic upon which the United States was, quite literally, built.
This is the perfect way to think about it, right? Once a house is built, nobody ever talks about the concrete foundation buried under the ground. But that hidden foundation determines the size of the rooms, where the walls go, the stability of the entire structure. The Doctrine of Discovery is that hidden foundation for American laws and institutions.
And if you want to see that foundation poking through the floorboards, look no further than this. Right in the middle of our most sacred text about liberty and equality, there's this line. It's a direct echo of the Doctrine of Discovery's logic, this idea that indigenous peoples were somehow outside the circle of humanity, that their lives and their land just didn't count in the same way.
And then the Constitution just went ahead and codified it, wrote it right into the rule book. The definition of we the people wasn't for everyone. It was deliberately exclusive. Enslaved black people were counted as only a fraction of a human for the purpose of political power. And Native Americans were just excluded entirely. That hierarchy, born in 1493, was being written directly into the law of the land.
So let's be clear, this is not just ancient history. We can actually trace how this foundational architecture continues to shape the deep cracks we see in our society right now.
Just look at this polling data. People were asked if they believe teachers are indoctrinating kids with a version of history that wrongly portrays America as racist. The divide is absolutely stark. You've got over half of Republicans and white evangelicals who agree with that statement. But on the other side, only 7% of Democrats. This is way more than a policy disagreement. This is a fundamental clash over the entire story of America.
This modern-day fight over history books isn't happening in a vacuum. It's being animated and fueled by a very specific worldview, one that flows directly from the deep historical logic we've been tracing this whole time.
That worldview today is often called white Christian nationalism. At its core, it's the belief that America has a special, God-given destiny to be a promised land for European Christians. But as Jones argues, this isn't some new thing. It's just a modern name for a powerful river of thought that started flowing all the way back with the Doctrine of Discovery 5 centuries ago.
And all of this leads us right to the core of the problem, the reason we seem to be so stuck in our divisions. It's not just a crisis of politics, it's a crisis in how we're even seeing the problem.
So here's the crucial point. So often, we argue about racism as if it's all about individual feelings, about good people versus bad people. But when we do that, we are completely missing the bigger picture. We're essentially arguing about the cracks we see in the walls without ever stopping to ask if the foundation itself is what's causing the entire structure to be unstable.
And that's what we try to do here. By understanding the system, this deep historical architecture, we give ourselves a better tool. A tool that helps us see our present challenges more clearly, and it allows us to shift the conversation from just blaming individuals to actually analyzing the structure itself.
So I'll just leave you with this question to chew on. When we're fighting about history, what are we really fighting about? Are we just disagreeing about facts and feelings here in the present? Or are we, without even knowing it, wrestling with the consequences of a design decision made over 500 years ago, a hidden foundation that is still shaping everything around us?
Thanks so much for joining us for this explainer. Hey, if this kind of systems-level thinking is your thing, do us a favor and like this and subscribe for more. And we'd love to hear from you in the comments. Let us know what other big ideas you'd like to see us break down next.